Panelists, we're going to get an influx of people coming in shortly as we go, so I'll turn it over. This is From Roots to Revenue, Scaling Indigenous Tourism. I'd like to welcome my man. Let's welcome Andrew, everybody. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
So much. Let's give it up for Andrew and the panel.
Okay, hi, everybody. Where'd everybody go? Oh, here they all start coming. Okay, so what I'm going to do is the fine art of dragging something on for a couple of minutes while people start getting settled in their chairs, okay? So let's see how I do with this. First of all, hi, my name is Andrew Leech, and I'll be moderating our panel today, Lessons Learned in Community Building Through Major Projects, okay? But before we get started, I'm going to give everybody a chance to come on inside now. Come on inside. And get everybody settled in, because before we started, before we closed off for the break, there were a lot of people in here. All this was filled up, and everybody's disappeared. Where did they go? Exactly, trade show. And so I heard Donna mention just before the break that you need to go there, and she mentioned about women in particular going and buying women's stuff, but I got to say to the men, you guys got to go buy some stuff. I did buy a bunch of stuff over there, by the way, and they have some really cool shirts, guys, so get some shirts, get some stuff, go over there and support the cause. Okay, so before we get started on this particular topic, major projects. What an interesting topic, hey? Thinking about it, it wasn't so long ago that these were the hopes that we'd get to this place, to be working on the type of projects that are coming up. And we're starting to hear about them now, and we're starting to see them in the newspapers and on the news. And I'm not talking about just APTN. They're on the main news stations now, right? And so it would be a good thing for us to hear about some major projects. Is there anything in commonality that they share? Are there some challenges that you'd like to know about them? So if you embark upon this, you'd say, oh, we got to watch out for that. And so these are some of the things that we're hoping to discuss today in the short time that we have. So before we turn it over to our panelists, I just want to say a little bit about myself. I actually am the former chair of NACA. I did that for a few years back. And when we first started getting off the ground with Shannon, is Shannon around? I'm very proud of the fact that I was on the panel that found Shannon way back when. I think it was 8 years ago or so now. And when we first started hosting this conference, it was quite small. It was smaller. And we didn't have as nice of a setup as we have now. Pretty nice setup there, hey? We just had these little stools for everybody 7 years ago, or whenever it was that we started. And we're getting bigger, and we're getting more established. And the booth with all the stuff for sale is getting better and better. So it's really nice to see us progressing. And to have our national chief here to open us up was really awesome. One of the things that I heard her say, which I wouldn't mind getting a copy of, is their AFN document, the Igniting Indigenous, Prosperity for All. And I thought it was interesting that their document, Prosperity for All, has that word prosperity in it. Our forum, Prosperity Forum, is an annual event. And that our theme this week is Igniting Indigenous Prosperity. And I honestly can't think of much more ignition than major projects. Those things can really be a catalyst for our communities, for our regions, and even for the nation. And one of the tidbits that the chief gave that I thought was pretty insightful was that just from an economic perspective, these things can really unlock a lot of growth. And so I think that's the promise of the major projects, is that they have the ability to unlock a lot of good for us. Okay, so I've dragged it on for a few minutes. It's best I can do, guys. I guess it's time to switch it over now to the panelists. So we're going to ask basically 3 questions. And I'm going to give each panelist a chance to share some insights into the questions. And then we'll wrap it up with some Q&As out there on the floor. I've noticed some of the Q&As have been pretty quiet and shy, but you guys aren't going to do that. You're going to think for the next half hour about a real smart question when we're done, so that you can get up and ask us and keep our panelists engaged, okay? But to start with our panelists, I have on the far end Alan Clarke. Actually, when I was the chair of NAC, I crossed paths with Alan because he was the Director General at Indigenous Services Canada back then. And so I had to play nice with him and try to get some money out of his pocket, because that's what you do when you're in my position back then. But we became pretty good colleagues at that time. I enjoyed working with him. Alan's now since retired, and he's moved on. And he's doing some work with the Alto project. And he'll explain that. That's that high-speed train that's going through, coming up. I guess now that the Liberals are in, it's really a possibility of coming up. And then next to him is my dear friend Carla George. There's stuff written on these things that Carla's with the Cultural Center and MST and all these other things. She's not here for that. We actually, when I seen the title of this community building through major projects, and I thought a good major project would be the Squamish high-rise. The Squamish Nation are building a bunch of high-rises in downtown Vancouver, like 6,000 units. It's being billed as one of the major real estate projects First Nations in Canada. And when I thought about community perspective, I thought of Carla, because she's a former council member for the Squamish Nation. She has done a lot of community work. I consider her one of the key leaders there. And so Carla is here with us, and look forward to hearing her thoughts on a community perspective of major projects. And then finally, we've got Steve Saddleback. Steve is with the First Nations Major Projects Coalition. You guys ever hear of the First Nations Major Projects Coalition? Yeah? Cool. Well, just think about it. We're getting to a point now where our projects are getting pretty substantial, and getting like-minded people in the same room working on these projects would do us some good. And Steve fortunately had an ability to get here on short notice and join us, and so really glad that Steve could join us and share insights about not just one major project, but the overarching major projects that he's seeing from the perspective of the Major Projects Coalition. Steve was not on our prep panel. We actually had a focus, a prep meeting 3 weeks or a month so back. And so I just caught Steve just this morning. And our questions were really based on your project, but I've given Steve some latitude to talk about all the projects that he's familiar with through the Major Projects Coalition, okay? So he may modify the questions to align with his insights for many major projects, okay? Okay, so there you go. I think we've gotten a few more people in. So the first question that I wanted to bring up with everybody on the panel, let me just grab it, sorry guys, is 5-7 minutes each, guys. Give a high-level overview of your major project. What is it? Who's involved? Who are the main players? What challenges have you faced thus far, and what lies ahead? Start with you, Alan. Thank you.
More than one question. I feel I've got the Kevin Biesca role here to Andrew's Ron McLean. I don't know who Elliot Freeman's going to be, but anyway. So Alan Clarke, I'm the Vice President of Indigenous Relations with Alto, and Alto is the high-speed train project that is proposed to be built between Quebec City and Toronto, with stops in Ottawa, or I guess Quebec City, Trois-Rivières, Laval, Montreal, Ottawa, Peterborough, and Toronto. And it'll be about 1,000-kilometer dedicated, electrified, dual-tracked project that will go over the north shore of the St. Lawrence in Quebec, and then through Montreal up to Laval, to Ottawa, and then down through Peterborough and Toronto. So not going through the same trajectory as the current VIA service goes along the St. Lawrence River. It's purported to be the largest infrastructure project in Canadian history. It'll probably create somewhere between 160 and 220,000 jobs. And the capital expenditure is estimated to be somewhere between $60 and $90 billion today. So you can only imagine what those numbers might look like in about 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. I'm responsible for delivering on the project's commitments to Indigenous people. We have very strong commitments around fulfilling the duty to consult. And in fact, the project declares that it wants to be a model for how Canada fulfills this duty. And Alto is a Crown corporation that was set up by the government to deliver this project and to work with private sector consortium to design, construct, and ultimately operate the system. So we also have commitments to achieving economic and socioeconomic participation for Indigenous people around things like procurement and employment targets. So we have 5% procurement and 5% employment targets. And we also are interested in trying to secure long-term participation in the project by Indigenous people as well. According to our assessment so far, or analysis, I guess, of the impacted communities, there's about 40 plus First Nations communities that could be impacted by the project between Quebec City and Toronto. That's based on the Aboriginal Treaty Rights Information System that some of you are probably familiar with. So we will be doing more work on a deeper assessment of impacted communities and their rights. So that's all I'll say. I just want to comment on what Andrew said earlier about me. And yes, it's true. I did work for the Department of Indian and Northern Affairs, as it was known at the time. I'd just like to make a public apology to everyone in the room. I left the public service in 2017. And I made a vow that I would try to use my powers for good instead of evil when I left. So that's what I'm trying to do now. And just a little editorial. Like this project, what interested me about this project was its stated commitment to be a model for what economic reconciliation could look for. And I believe that they want to do it properly, and that's what we're trying to do. And as we go through the discussion, I can perhaps present a few more examples of how we're trying to do it right. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan. Carla?
Thank you. Hatsquile, Quitlodi Cloak, Shamansna, Nuquams, Hatnutzameka, Usizasame, Horchacha, Chenquamentomi, Algonquin, and Nishnabé. Just thanking each and every one of you as the crowd goes wild. The room starts to fill up a little bit more. Just sharing with you who I am and where I come from. My parents are Squamish and Quagilt. They're both residential school survivors. And I do a lot of presentations, and I'll say, isn't that so bizarre? We have to say that our children survived these institutions or internment camps, but they survived, therefore I am. So let's take that time to acknowledge them. It's important for me to do that. Yes, I served 4 terms on Squamish Council, almost 16 years. My uncle calls us recovering politicians. I didn't run the last election, and needed to be with my parents and take care of them and my own health. I have health issues anyways, that's besides the point. But we worked really hard on Sanok, this project, when I was on council, but way before my time in the 60s through to the 70s, going to court and battling it out with various organizations, and continued on into when we finally finished the court action in 2001. And we had a $92.5 million settlement, and then 10.5 acres that came back. And so this is the land that we're developing right now. Currently, there's 3 towers that are going up. I had a chance to go and tour in the towers. It is amazing. We're up on the 32nd floor. There weren't any windows or anything other than a gate that was there. But to look at the views and to see what our ancestors fought so hard for, you know, that here we are doing the work that we're doing across this country, but, you know, in my own community, I'm just really grateful. That's what I thought about right away was my ancestors and what they fought so hard for us and the next generations to come. So I'll talk more about the project after, but in a nutshell, that's what I'm here to talk about. Thank you for inviting me, Andrew.
Thanks, Carla. Steve?
Hey, Tanzane. Good morning, everyone. My name is, my traditional name is Ope Moyaso. I'm from the Squamish Nation in Treaty 6 territory, about 45 minutes south of Edmonton. I make my home in Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, and Treaty 7 territory. And so I'm a visitor here today and wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you for the opportunity to be able to sit with you. You've heard from our fellow panelists. Absolutely amazing the work that you guys do, and you know I'm really honored to be able to sit alongside of you. I join you, and before I go and introduce Major Projects Coalition, what I like to do is share a little bit of my history in terms of getting my start as a young career and everything. And I got to shake the hand and hug a good friend, Elaine Chambers, this morning. And Elaine, thank you so much. You know, as the chair of NACA and the organization, as a young man coming to university out in this way, NACA was one of the organizations that I had the opportunity to start my career with, and that was some 23 years ago. So it's been a long way and a very interesting journey, and it's been a fun ride. And to be able to stand up here alongside all of you, to be able to see this NACA continue to develop and continue to grow as an organization has been a testament to the leadership and all of those that are involved, including the AFIs, to where we are here today. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you. Hi. So switching gears is, you know, the coalition, the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, was formed back in 2015, and that was an organization that had 50 First Nations folks come together in Prince George, and there was a discussion in regards to the ability to participate in a major project. It was a pipeline. They were looking at equity ownership opportunities at the time, and the only you know, the opportunity was on the table, but the only access to capital, and we continue to see this theme, is the only access to capital that they were able to achieve at the time was at credit card rates. And when we recognize the, you know, those kind of opportunities where you see an ownership opportunity, you know, many of those, the profits within that aren't going to be at that 30% and plus rate. So if you want to participate within that, it just made it absolutely punitive for those nations to be able to even access that. So what they said is that there's got to be a better way. We need to be able to do something better. And then with this, you know, they ended up going out and seeking partners and talking with folks. So one of those was past Senator Jerry Saint-Germain. And, you know, talking with the senator and being able to say, Jerry, we need to be able to have a better way of doing this. And they took it to the Hill. It was, you know, it was struck down a number of different times. Nobody really wanted to hear it, but they fought again, just like as I'd mentioned from our, you know, from Carla. You know, it was that fight continued on, that we need to be able to have this kind of thing happen. And they were successful in being able to get this funded. And from what grew from a small gathering of 50 people back in 2014, 2015, now I can say we've now grown into over 175 First Nations that we have the opportunity and the pleasure to serve, and to a gathering last week of 1,700 people in downtown Toronto. So it's been a very interesting journey along the way. And it's been a great opportunity. And what we would like to, how we define what is a major project is a project that is in excess of $100 million. And then so we look at that project and we're there to serve. And we currently working on 19 projects that have a market cap of $47 billion. So I'd be happy to continue to share a little bit more insight as we go on, and pass it back to our moderator. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. So we now have a number to work with, major projects, $100 million, right? Okay, good. Okay, so second question. When we were doing our prep work for this, and we're getting summaries of all of the projects that we were working on at the time with the panel, it became clear that there were 3 common themes amongst the major projects that all happened to start with the letter P: partnerships, procurement, and people. And so I throw that back to the panel on these 3 things: partnerships, procurement, and people. What can you tell us about these 3 Ps with respect to major projects and your major project in particular? I'll start with you, Steve. Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, absolutely. You know, when it comes to looking at any kind of major project, and one of the ways that we, as an organization, support those major projects is people first. You know, it's driven. Our projects are driven by our members, and they look at it. It's, you know, a lot of folks go, oh, okay, well, you guys are working on 17, 19 different projects, so those are First Nations major projects, coalitions, initiatives. Yes and no. We're really there to support our members, and our members come to us with projects, and then from there, we're really there in a support role, assisting them with capacity, talking about that, you know, you talked about the procurement process and all of this, so ensuring that people are involved in all of those, the life cycle of those projects, providing economic tools as well as even assessment, from conceptualization all the way through to ultimately to retirement. You know, we want to be able to see these projects through life cycle. So that's how we're involved.
Thanks, Steve. Carla?
Thank you. Yes, certainly starting with the people first, and going through a referendum we did in our community to ensure that the community supported us moving forward with this particular project. We've created Inchkai Development Corp, which separates the business, as you're all aware, but protecting the nation. So now we have an Inchkai real estate team. So Inchkai, is just to also reference, is the mountain that saved our people during the Great Flood. Our people got into our canoes and used cedar rope and tied it to the top of the trees. So that's a beautiful mountain in Squamish, Mount Garibaldi. So we named it after the most appropriate place for us. So the real estate team are the drivers of the project, ensure the partnership is strongly rooted in our Squamish values. So making sure that we have this story that I'll explain throughout, how horrifically our people were ousted out of our own lands in 1913. So really, we've got a whole team, Sanok operations and Squamish directors that work together. So we have taxation, bylaws, community engagement, cultural integration, which is really important. So just to back up a little bit back to that story, if I can try to tell it as quick as possible, but in 1913, CP Rail wanted to have a turnaround, and so the provincial government supported them in this endeavor and moved our people out of their shacks and put them on a barge. And so they were just going to push us out and we were going to die or whatever was going to happen to us. as it so happens, Kerry Cates, who had a barge company, he got his barge and brought our people to the North Shore, and from there, they were provided with a check, but there was no money in the account. And so as time went on, the 60s I reference, when our forefathers started this work to talk about what had happened and wanting to have court action for how our people had been mistreated. And as many of you know, there's overlap issues, and so we ended up in court with our relatives. But the judge had said the people were brought to Squamish communities, and so next we fought the government and we acquired that settlement. But, you know, really wanting to tell that story throughout, and so I'll talk a little bit more when we get to the cultural component, but this is, you know, something that I feel very, very strongly about, is these stories across this country need to be told. Like, all of us have some kind of story in our communities, and you know, when I think of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, some of us are still telling our truths, or we're telling our truths for those survivors, or whoever it may be, that we're the voice for them. So these are some of the things that I wanted to raise, but thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Carla. I just wanted to summarize that, because I just want to make sure it's clear. So being over there, I got the visual. Not sure if those who have not been over there see this, but Squamish were parked right in what's now downtown Vancouver. Pretty good real estate, right? And these people way back in 1913 say, oh, jump on this barge, come and hang out here for a little while. So they put all the Squamish people on the barge, put them across the water over to the North Shore. They say, oh, here's all this land here that's now we can use for whatever we want.
It was 80 acres at that time.
How many?
80.
80 acres, downtown Vancouver. So they set a lawsuit in motion, I guess, how many ever years ago, that finally culminated in them winning that lawsuit, which now has returned some of the land back, and I guess some cash and other things. And so they're developing that land that was taken away from them, given some money, but the check bounced. It wasn't even cashable. And so this is how that massive high-rise project in downtown Vancouver has come to be. That's the gist of it. And it's all about the people, the Squamish people, having faced that back then, and this long, drawn-out fight to get to where they are today. Right? Okay, thanks. Alan?
Andrew mentioned that we had a call to prepare ourselves for this panel, and he suggested that we put together little cards. And so I dutifully went home and made my cards. Now he's changing the questions.
You should have known that, Alan.
So if this sounds a bit disjointed, don't blame me. So people, procurement, and partnerships. So I guess with people, I'll talk a little bit about, I think it's about relationships. And I said earlier that Alto has a very strong commitment to ensuring that we fulfill the duty to consult. And a part of that is building the relationships with the communities that we believe will be impacted by the project. And so our philosophy is to engage early, engage often. And the development phase of this project was only announced in February of this year, like 3 months ago. But we've been engaging with the communities when this was still a notion. So we've been engaging with the communities at least since about 2017, and more aggressively since, I guess, about 2022, 2023. And we have been very committed to working with them in ways that will help us understand what their priorities are, what their interests are, what their aspirations are, and their attitudes and their to the project as well. And we want to make sure that we integrate their perspectives through the entire life cycle of the project. And so as an example, now we're in the kind of the development phase of the project, which will take somewhere between 3 and maybe 5 years, which will lead up to the commencement of the impact assessment process. And so what we're trying to do with the communities is work with them so that they can contribute their knowledge, understanding, and their views on things like the ultimate alignment of the project. So we're supporting them in doing things like land-based studies, IK studies, traditional land use studies, involvement in field studies that are being done to support the environmental or the impact assessment process, as well as working with us so they can do their own First Nations-led assessment of the impact of this project on their rights. So that's a big part of ensuring that when we get to these different milestones in the project, whether it's the decisions around the alignment, the corridor and the alignment, decisions around things like the initial project description, which is a requirement prior to the impact assessment, and through the impact assessment process, they are fully engaged, and we fully understand their issues and their concerns. The second thing is procurement. We heard from the National Chief today. I mean, no one in this room is going to contradict the point that the federal procurement process is broken, and it is not, in most First Nations people's eyes, authentic or legitimate. So what Alto is proposing is the development of a project procurement office that would be independent of our project, and we would co-design that office with Indigenous organizations. In fact, we're in the midst of concluding a MOU with NACA to help us in that process. So with NACA's support, we will co-design a definition that everyone is happy with. We'll create this body, this office will also certify the authenticity of businesses. It'll create a registry. It'll do things that the current PSAB program or PSIP program doesn't do, like provide networking and relationship building opportunities, promote access to procurement, not just not just passively accept applications to go into the existing registry, provide educational services, training, help us identify some of the barriers to procurement and co-design some solutions to overcoming those barriers. And then also perform an evaluation function so that we know, are we on track to meet our targets, for instance, and what do we need to do to better perform. And as I said, the procurement process is very important. I said earlier that the capital expenditure is estimated to be somewhere between $60 and $90 billion. So I'm not a mathematician, but 5% of $60 to $90 billion sounds like a big number to me. So there's huge opportunities, but we have to understand what are the impediments to Indigenous businesses having access to those opportunities, and we have to work with Indigenous communities, businesses, institutions, organizations, and government so that we have the right tools in place to help us meet our targets. And then the last part was on partnerships. So when I talked about the MOU that we're trying to conclude with NACA to help us on the procurement office, we're also working with other Indigenous organizations to help us deliver on our outcomes. So we already have an MOU with Indigenous Works that's helping us understand and measure the labor market capacity to meet the demands of the project. So the project, as I said earlier again, was will create upwards of 200,000 jobs over the life cycle of to the operational part of the project. That'll be over the course of 15 to 20 years. And the development phase of that will take the next 5 years or so. So while we have a bit of a, I don't like to mix my metaphors, but a bit of a runway on this train. No? No.
Funny.
My talents are wasted here.
Tough crowd.
So while we have a bit of a runway, we need to do more work. And I think just one editorial I would like to say is that the current suite of programs that we have, like including those that support the network of AFIs, have not really been capitalized properly for the last, you tell me, right, the number of years. We need to put some of this, if we want to meet our objectives, not just Alto, but all these other major projects that are coming down. And the government has said, the new government has said, they want to build, baby, build, and they want to accelerate new projects for infrastructure, for energy, all kinds of things. we need to make sure, we need to dust off the programs that were currently managed in the government and put them on steroids. So have we really reinvested in the labor market development programs properly? Have we really invested in the business development programs properly? And I think that's something that we need to consider and something that we need to do. And then finally, I mentioned on the partnerships. Oh, yeah, I mentioned, okay, we're working with Indigenous Works. Oh, yeah, I had a little parenthesis because I was editorializing. But anyway, we're also working with the CCIB to do some work on understanding the profile of the Indigenous business sector. Again, we have to look at the project and what we demand, what the project will demand, and do we have the supply and the capacity and the scale and scope in the Indigenous business sector to deliver on that. And if we do, that's wonderful. But if we don't, what else do we need to do to meet those goals? We're also working with Indigenous people around an Indigenous design framework to ensure that we meet our objectives around integrating Indigenous design in the project. That we'll be building at least 6 stations along the corridor. It's a huge opportunity to find ways of integrating Indigenous design in the stations, in the rolling stock, and any number of different things, as well as trying to find ways where the interests of First Nations and the interests of the project could find some coherence. So, for instance, the settlement of specific claims is resulting in a significant amount of money and land being transferred to First Nations. Are there things that we can be doing to emulate some of the success they have in places like Saskatchewan and Manitoba around urban reserves, around the stations that will be part of this project? I mean, and that's, we haven't, this is very early days, but these are the kind of conversations that we have to have. And again, partnership is critical to figuring out what some of the opportunities are to meet our objectives.
Thanks, Alan. Don't give up your day job on comedy, by the way. So, sorry. Okay, so we're about to finish off with the last question, but before we do, I just want to summarize what I heard thus far and maybe make a quick comment on what I've seen out there. With respect to procurement, the National Chief mentioned this morning about this issue of companies coming forward and pretending to be Indigenous so that they can get these opportunities. And this is one of the things we'd probably want to watch out for with these major projects, companies coming to do that. And when I've sat at other tables wondering how we could get around this, just intuitively I know in my backyard, if you come and see us, we'll know whether you are or you aren't. We just know, right? We know. So if you're looking for definitions and gatekeeping, us in the community know best. So let's figure out a way how to incorporate that into any identification processes. What else I've seen with procurement is that the First Nation or First Nations in that area, the Indigenous groups, a lot of the industry players want to do business with us, and they're ready to work with us and carve out work. Some are. And when they do, what they really need from us, what I've learned more than anything, is good, reliable people and good, reliable equipment. I mean, if you've got that, they'll want to do work with you. So we've got to find a way to meet that need on our side. If the door starts cracking open a bit, it gets wider and wider if we're able to deliver on the work that needs to be done. With respect to partnerships, I can think of many different types, starting with government partners. We're talking about capital, the need for capital, the need for supporting these projects when they're in the approval stages and the like. So there's a lot of different ways that we can be partnering with government to ensure that there's as smooth of a transition as possible. Obviously, other partners are those who are going to build. What kind of partners are out there? I think we all know that there are a lot of shady potential partners out there who can take us for a ride. So we got to be careful about how we select our partners and work with our partners. What are the lessons that we've learned from other partnerships What I've seen is you need to not only pick the right people, but you got to manage those relationships well too, in order for them to be successful. And our own Indigenous neighbors, other First Nations, other Indigenous groups, we need to find ways to partner. There's a lot to go around, so we've got to work with all of our stakeholders in these kind of projects. And finally, with people, love your comments, Carla, on that. Make sure it stays close to home. This is why we do these things, is for our people. And so what are the opportunities for our people with this? Training opportunities, employment opportunities. What are we doing to get there? I've heard many leaders now say they could create enough jobs, or they have enough jobs in their backyard for all of their members, but they've got to be ready to work and want to work and be trained for those positions. So what are we doing to make sure that our members, our people, are getting the most of those opportunities? Maybe not just the entry-level positions, but what else might they be available and interested to do? Because the sky's the limit if we focus on the people. Okay, so we were running a bit ahead of schedule, so I've made up for it with that little spiel. So now we'll finish off with our closing comments. Okay, so just wanted to give everybody a chance at the panel to make some final comments, and I'll start with you, Alan.
I don't have a card for that. I guess a couple of things I would just say in closing, or say things that I haven't said yet. The relationship, too, is also the commitment of the organization to work with Indigenous people. And so putting together a team that is committed to the project and committed to building the relationship with Indigenous people is very important. And and actually, some of you may know Nathan Wright. He's here today, and he's the Director of Engagement here in Canada, I guess Canada West. And we're trying to avoid provincial jurisdictions to identify our roles. So we're trying to put together very strong teams that are very committed to working with Indigenous people, that know the communities in the regions, and we're spending a lot of time on the road and in communities. Since the announcement, we've had, I don't know, maybe 12 or 14 community visits with different First Nations along the corridor. We're concluding, I would say, collaboration agreements with communities to provide them the funding to support their participation in the planning of the project. We'll also be looking at longer-term ways of providing other ways of participation over the long term, including equity participation or revenue sharing options, those types of things. So we're very open and committed to finding ways that we have a meaningful participation of Indigenous people in the project. I guess the other thing too is this, it's going to require, this is a national project. It's quite, it's large. And when I look at some of the challenges that we have, or that we are believing that we have, we're doing the work to make sure we understand the scale and scope of some of the challenges. Someone said earlier this morning that the labor force participation of Indigenous people is, and we all know this, is low to begin with compared to other Canadians. But the labor force participation in things like the trades and STEM-related occupations is even lower than the overall participation rate of Indigenous people in the labor market. So, we have a lot of work to do to ensure that Indigenous kids are looking at options in the trades and STEM-related occupations. We have to do that in collaboration with communities. We also have to do that in collaboration with some of the expertise that we have in the Indigenous world and with the organizations and institutions that have been set up to provide that expertise. So while the opportunities are great, there's still a lot of challenges. I think one of the things I would say, since we're in Gatineau, across the river from Parliament and the seat of government, I think we really have to collectively explain to government what the impediments or the challenges are, and come up with creative solutions to address them. And that's not to say there haven't been creative solutions to deal with some of these issues. I look at something like the First Nations Fiscal Management Act regime, and I was kind of schooled by people like Harold Calla and Manny Jules on that kind of stuff, as well as the success of NACA in terms of the outcomes that this network, which has been, I guess, I wouldn't say, in which the government has invested a relatively small amount of money for an incredibly large amount of leverage. And I think if you actually invested and recapitalized and changed some of the antiquated rules around what the AFI or IFIs are allowed to do, you could really start to put some of these things, at least, maybe not on steroids yet, but at least in the direction that we need to go. That is the end of my official comments.
Thanks, Alan. Carla?
Thank you. I thought we were going question by question, so I've got to try and cram this all in.
Okay.
But our partner is West Bank, and so it's holding their feet to the fire in the negotiations that you've, worked on very rigorously to ensure that you're protecting the rights for your people. And we had worked with various governments, with our council, having council-to-council meetings, and working with the City of Vancouver. And so getting a service agreement with the City of Vancouver for our on-reserve project was, certainly a milestone for our nation. Which is really important for this project. We acquired the CMHC $1.4 billion loan, largest in Canadian history for an Indigenous-led development project. Our construction manager, Peak, is amazing. So having an Indigenous person, I don't know if you know George Hemian, but he's Squamish and works on the project on the site to ensure these things are being followed through. So really, really grateful to have someone to also, on a day-to-day basis, holding their feet to the fire. We have Hiam Housing, which is our own Squamish housing that oversees various projects within our community. So there'll be 250 units that will be available for our members. Of the 6,000 units that are rental, $10 billion project. Obviously including our elders, our Squamish elders, knowledge keeper, artists, and community members. So the art that will be included to tell that story, as I mentioned, is so important. We have various procurement and employment documents that are always monitored to ensure that these things are followed through on the negotiations. We had approximately 25% of employees on site that identified as Indigenous. Early days was approximately up to 60%. Working on reserve is pretty awesome, middle of the city, right? Multiple Indigenous-owned businesses on site: ironworking, trucking, logistics, site clearing, food trucks, catering. We have Indigenous retail strategy currently being developed. And finally, just coming to our culture, which is we have a Sanok advisory culture panel, and so including interior, exterior design, branding, marketing, wayfinding and signage. We have our own subcommittee for language. It's really cool. On my tour last week, in the woods, they have our Squamish language, and they put it onto this panel, and then they poured the concrete so you can see our language. It's welcoming everyone to our Sanok, Squamish Oakhomeok, our territory, and it just flowed really well. So when I looked out there, my heart just soared thinking of our ancestors and the pain and atrocity that they had experienced, but they kept that story alive for us. And so we continue to flourish, and with the revenue that will come in, we'll have these nation amenity contributions. Like many of you probably, we have 1,000 people on our housing list of 4,000 members, so that's what we would definitely like to do, is to bring the money home to house our people and helping with health and whatever else, recreation, all these good things that we do to take care of our own people at home. So Chen Clementomi, thank each and every one of you. Hold my hands up to the good work that each and every one of you are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Steve?
Ooh, I am in the hot seat because I think this is one of the spots between you guys and lunch, I believe. Uh-oh. I better make this quick. All right. No, thank you for that. Absolutely. Those are phenomenal. And those are examples of exactly the way to do major projects. Yeah, I'll sum it up in terms of, our organization. So a couple of things I didn't touch on is we're a not-for-profit. So we don't come into any major project looking for capital or anything like that. We nations choose to become a member of First Nations Major Projects Coalition through a BCR. And then that goes through a couple of different vetting processes because of procurement and, ensuring viability of projects and everything. Once that passes through and it gets the approval, then that comes down to the organization to be able to provide those supports to the nation. A couple of things that we don't do is we're not a political body, so we're more about the business side of things. And then we also don't take a position in any project that we're involved in. So, if you bring something to us, we look at the numbers and everything, and you go, hey, if this is a project that has a 40 times multiple, my investment side says, what a great opportunity. However, just from a purely ethical standpoint, we won't take a position on any project. So we won't invest $1 in those. We'll just provide unbiased information as well as research into the project. As you heard from our fellow panelists here, a couple of opportunities when you're going through these projects is that you need to be able to evaluate them. So from that conceptualization, we have a Spirit of the Land toolkit is available on our website for those accountants in the room, as well as those folks that like to analyze things. There's a created tool set, our Excel spreadsheet that will assist you in guiding in through that process. And we welcome all of those that are in the room to go and have a look at those. As access to capital, looking at things like capital markets. If some of us we don't necessarily have a financial background or anything like that. We all come with different unique tool sets and everything. Is being able to take you through that process. So those kind of resources are available on our website, and they're free to access. So check them out. We also are involved in reports and publications, other things like the National Electrification Strategy, as well as Indigenous-owned electrical utilities in Canada. So being able to highlight the major projects that are happening across Canada, how our nations and our members are involved in those projects. What is the capital? What is the capitalization of that? What is the contribution back to the GDP? All of those things that our ancestors and those that have come before us have fought so hard, is to being able to recognize that, and then to be able to provide that the platform and the opportunity to share that great work. Going forward, looking at opportunities in and around critical minerals, how do we ensure that we're involved in every step of the process, and ensuring that we're having discussions, as Stan had mentioned, as well as National Chief this morning. In terms of involvement, I'm from Alberta, so, recognizing jurisdiction, as we've had those discussions in and around NRTA. That's my own personal thing, is that we need to be able to have those discussions, and how do we look at involvement? How do our nations ensure that they're at the table of every single one of those discussions going forward? So I just wanted to be able to close out with that and say thank you to each and every one of you and all of you attending here for having me here today. Hi.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Carla. Thanks, Alan. Well, I took that time to say things because we were ahead, now we're behind, so I'm kind of regretting saying what I said all that length of time. And then I promised you guys a chance to come up with some smart questions, and some of you are already thinking about the food, I'm sure. So why don't I quickly do this? Are there any quick questions anybody wants to ask this panel? I'll take that as we're good for lunch. Well, thank you all for that. And please, if you have any questions, come and see the panelists, but appreciate you enjoying this time with us. Thank you all.